What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Arena Goat Talk, bringing on the legends of this game, the guys who put this thing together. And, let them tell their story and give you some tips along the way. So in this next episode, I got one of the best who ever did it, kind of one of the guys who I kind of looked up to, Defensive Player of the Year, every award you could think of, man, got attached to his name. Mr. James Barron, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. Humbly, I appreciate that intro and appreciate you for putting this platform up and, giving the players, touching on that legacy. So first off, thanks to you.
All right. Appreciate it. So appreciate you coming on, carving out time to speak with me. And definitely I want guys nowadays from, playing this game to understand who put this game together, who helped carry this game, and some of your struggles haven't gone in vain. You guys nowadays, they don't necessarily understand the guys who put it together, and so my whole idea is to try to help shine a light on you guys and put you out there so you can tell your story, so these guys will realize that somebody been through this before them.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's get into your story. So kind of like let's talk about go into like where you from and kind of like your story up until college.
Okay, I'm from a lot of different places. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. Not like kind of a military thing, but more out of a dysfunction thing. And so I started out in Boston as a kid and just moving all around that kind of northeast area. And by the time I was in middle, so I didn't play organized football as a child. I played just a lot of sandlot, was always playing with the bigger kids and, trying to work my way into some of the older guys' games. And, they would let me play. And so I fell in love like with football kind of out of that. It was just something that I leaned on, every Sunday, whatever was going on in my life on a personal level, I always just kind of went back to football and just was drawn to that initially. And just watched it all the time. And whether it was Inside the NFL on HBO or, getting some type of little book or at school that had some football players in it or something, you know what I mean? I was just like truly obsessed with, football, whether it was playing it or watching it or involved with it, some kind of way. So that's where that kind of came. That love for the game came when I was very young, that's where the passion kind of drew out of it. And so we bounced around a little, settling, I would say probably when I was in 7th grade, we moved to the Chicago area and I went to school in Hammond. It's like a southeast suburb, you would call it. I wouldn't call it much of a suburb, but the southeast part of that region and the Chicago area. And so that's where I touched down and first played organized football in middle school in 7th grade. And so they put me on the line and I think I played center and defensive line, defensive line and center. And so just was very passionate about football then, wasn't coming from much, and to get on the football field and have a chance to kind of prove yourself and, earn some validation through that camaraderie, amongst your guys and the teachers and the coaches, that was empowering for me, somebody who probably lacked confidence, at that point in my life, you know what I mean? So football helped definitely develop me on that personal level. So just basically was pretty good initially. And I think it was just like a lot of effort, you know what I mean? It was really all effort. Wasn't anything really technical that anybody had taught me or, that I had even played previously, but I did a lot of watching, right? And observation is one of the best teachers, and so I watched a lot of those guys, Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor and Howie Long and all these type of guys, you know what I mean? And so I watched it all the time. So I probably subconsciously picked up a move or two, you know what I mean? Just because of how I watched the game, and so, but anyway, in seventh grade started, and just kind of never looked back from there. I got a kind of a piece and taste of, what that was and what it meant to kind of be on a team. Like the team part of it also felt real good to me. You know what I mean? And when you're, the validation you get from going out and kind of having struggles and preparing and, just overcoming with a group of people, you know what I mean? That the family aspect of football, you know what I mean? If I wasn't really getting that off the field, that's the family component of football. It really wrapped itself around me, you know what I mean? And what we feel kind of in the locker rooms, the things we miss so much when we're done, you know what I mean? That stuff, you know what I mean? So those are things that, just drew me closer and closer to the game. And so just started competing. At seventh grade, I did pretty good. Eighth grade, did good. Then I went to Gavitt High School. It was in Hammond. It's no longer a high school. But, where I started for, I didn't start my freshman year. I think I got moved up later that year, played freshman football. And, but I played both ways. We were in the era where I played offensive tackle and I played defensive line. And so I thought that helped my development as a football player as well. You know what I mean? Just, building a certain kind of stamina, first of all, as it relates to football. And then just kind of, you understand what you want to do on offense and you understand what you're trying to get done on defense. But when you kind of know both, you just, you feel more equipped, to attack what you're trying to do. So, but anyway, basically in high school, kind of changed that program around by the time I was a senior leaving out. So this is going to be kind of a theme thing with me. Every team I get on, like the thing was, okay, we sucked, and then 2 or 3 years we had a good senior season, and we that kind of helped me out. So, but in high school, man, so off the field, I was kind of a delinquent. You dig what I'm saying? To be honest with you, and just didn't make all the right choices all the time. You know what I mean? Definitely not in school. Once I felt like I was empowered on the field, I was already in the NFL at 17. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I don't know what y'all doing. You know what I mean? But so I didn't really give my books the proper attention like they should have, and there were a lot of other factors, but at the end of the day, I didn't apply myself. You do what I'm saying? And just trying to finesse my way by kind of thing, and just thought that the teachers would push me through. And so I didn't get recruited heavy. I was a good player, all-state player, and all this kind of stuff, but it was Prop 48 back then, and
Prop 48.
yeah, and so teams, there's a lot of there's more good football players than there are jobs. You know what I mean? That's what I tell guys all the time. So, don't thinking like it's going to stop with you. You know what I mean? They're going to go on to the next guy. And, if he fits more like what they want, then they're going to move on to that. And at that time, it still is now, they want all around kids and grades and stuff like that. So with that being said, I had to go to junior college after I came out of high school. And so, that obviously wasn't something you wanted to do when some of your peers or people, football wise, were going to these bigger universities and, that kind of stuff. And, you were all state player and this and that. And I got to go to JUCO. And so I had to go to JUCO route. Went to school in Iowa my first year, Iowa Central. They had a JUCO league at that time. It was about 6 or 7 teams in Iowa. And then we played some teams in the Midwest as well. So that first year I went to JUCO in Iowa. I played a bunch of different positions, but played mostly D-line and some tight end, and transferred back to after that season, got in some trouble there. After that season, transferred back to Chicago area, Triton. It's a small, they had a league there too. They had a league in Illinois too, 4 or 5 schools. And I transferred to that Triton Junior College. It was in, where was that? River Grove. Illinois. It's just right outside of the city, right up that way where the Rush played up that way.
Okay.
And so I went to junior college there, and had a great season there that year, and was fortunate enough that Coach Gene Mitz, my high school coach, knew him. You know what I mean? So I got into a little trouble in Iowa, and then when I was leaving there, kind of my high school coach. So it's all also about relationships, right? Relationships get you to where you at. Nobody makes it to anywhere, on their own. You know what I mean? Not even. Definitely no one playing team sports. You don't make it to the Hall of Fame or wherever you go without the other 10 or 11 guys that are out there with you, and the other 11 on the other side. You know what I mean? And so it's all about those relationships. So anyway, my high school coach kind of connected me back with this coach at the junior college at Triton, and went there and, had a pretty good year to where I was getting recruited heavy at the time. Some 1AA, a couple like Youngstown State at the time. Jim Trussell was the coach. They had a great program out of Youngstown State. Pitt was one of the teams looking at me, and Virginia Tech. I had never even heard of Virginia Tech at that moment. I didn't even know what, I just didn't know it was a school. You know what I mean? And but they began recruiting me at the time, and they were newly entering into the Big East Conference. And so they played like Miami and Syracuse, and Miami was one of the teams that I liked and looked at, growing up. And so I'm like, oh, y'all play them? Oh, okay. Well, shit, I want to play in the Orange Bowl. Let me go here. At least I get to play against them if I can't play for them. And so that was one of those things that drew me to the university. But before I signed in the spring and was supposed to go that fall, but screwed up my spring academics, didn't take it seriously, being delinquent that summer, you know what I mean? Running around the city back in Chicago, you know what I mean? And so there were a lot of things, influences, stuff around me that kept me off track, you dig what I mean? And not focusing on what, and then football always came easy, right? I put the work in kind of through the weight room, and my high school coach, Rob Hansen, he gave us that discipline of the weight room and things of that nature. And so I always put the work in like during that time, but like when it was not football, you know what I mean? I'm out doing whatever. You dig what I mean? I'm not taking no extra steps to prepare myself for, none of that. You know what I mean? Or taking it serious, or so not understanding the what it takes or the talent I had. Really, I knew I was good, but I thought I was just going to be able to get by on that. Like you got to keep building, you got to keep growing. You can't just be, it just don't work like that. You know what I mean? Very few can roll out the bed. You know what I mean? And they just like that. You know what I mean? So, and the higher you go, the harder it gets, right? So, I wasn't treating it like that. I wasn't treating it like the higher I go, the harder it gets. I was just like, oh, it's just another. I'm gonna dominate this like I dominated that. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So, got to Tech. So I had to sit out that first semester. I went in the fall of '93. And basically, I didn't have the grades to get admitted into the university. And so they told me still to come down anyway. You know what I mean? Just come anyway. Probably was illegal. I don't even know. You know what I mean? I think the statute of limitations is up. But they forgive me if it ain't. I'm not one of them guys to snitch on the university. But they brought me down there and kind of just got me a job, paired me up with a couple red shirt guys that had their off-campus apartment. And, so I just kind of had to live and work there, but wasn't part of the team. And this was they had a great year that year. And so I'm kind of like just sitting, going to work, ain't really working out. Probably blew up to the heaviest I ever been in my life at that point in time of my career. So I probably got up to like about 275, 280, just working and eating, basically, watching TV and not really doing anything. So I got admitted. So I had to go to a junior college there while I was there working, eating, and going to school. Got the grades there, went to the junior college there. So they admitted me in in the winter, the spring session. And but I was 280 pounds, so they were thinking that I was coming in to probably play DN, what I had been playing, my whole career basically. You know what I mean? And but when I got there, I couldn't even do a suicide. I remember like my first off season, and I'm a runner. Like that's what I can do. I can run, but I couldn't even do a suicide. You dig what I'm saying? And so it was real embarrassing, very humbling. You know what I mean? Like first day of off-season workouts, and we lining up at whatever indoor facility we had, and the indoor, and it's time for me to run some suicides, and I can't really get through one of them. You know what I mean? So it was very humbling, made me mad, right? It was one of them things where I didn't tuck my tail, it lit a fire under me. You know what I mean? But I was behind the 8 ball on the field, so they moved me to D tackle. You know what I mean? So by the time I went through that spring and that summer, I had lost that 280. You dig what I mean? And started working out, and because I'm definitely dedicated when I'm in structure. But so when I was in that structure that they had, I just dedicated myself fully to it, and just got into good shape. Got back down to about 260, but now I'm playing D tackle. And so they just kind of left me in that spot, and I had to share time. We had a lot of good guys on that particular team, and so I was just really coming from JUCO, so the older guys, they like, man, you ain't taking my job. You dig what I'm saying? And they really not fucking with you. The younger guys like, man, you ahead of me. And the older guys are like, man, we don't know you. You ain't taking my shit. It's no really respect. You still got to earn your respect, so to speak. And so, we had J.C. Price was a great player. Cornell Brown, one of our ends. We had Wave Jackson. These are all guys that got drafted. You dig what I'm saying? And had somewhat of pro careers. You know what I mean? So we were deep too. You know what I mean? So I had to play backup. My season, and that was something that was I didn't want to do. It was humbling. You know what I mean? But I had to basically get in where I fit in. And take that for what it was. And so that junior year or whatever, had a decent season. My first game of the year had 3 sacks to start my college career there at Virginia Tech. So that kind of put me off on the right foot, as far as career rise at Virginia Tech. And going into our senior year, worked myself to be a captain of the football team, from a couple years. And we started out 0-2 that season, 95, and basically went on a 10-game run, won the Sugar Bowl, and kind of put Virginia Tech into the national conversation. Now, obviously, Vic and them took it to, another level as far as branding wise, you know what I mean? But when we beat Texas in 95, that was kind of okay, that's a school right there. That's, I think maybe Bruce Smith being the number 1 pick prior to that, people kind of knew what it was. But then when we played football, we beat Texas on a national stage. That brought us out. And I actually scored the last touchdown of that season, a fumble recovery. I returned it for like 30 yards, maybe 20 or 30 yards, whatever it was. And so that culminated that season, made it extra special. But that D-line in that group, it was a lot of shared time, a lot of shared starts. We were very deep, and that's why we were like kind of able to overwhelm people, you know what I mean? Because we were deep, you know what I mean? So that was kind of the story of my time at Virginia Tech. And so coming out of Tech, I missed 4 games my senior year. Had a high ankle sprain, and like right at the maybe 3rd or 4th game, so missed like a chunk of the middle of the season. So I believe that hurt me. And but I ran well at our pro day. I didn't get to go to the combine. I ran well. I lifted well, and so I do know that helped me get a free agent shot, an undrafted free agent shot with the Detroit Lions. And it was kind of between them and the Cowboys, who wanted me to come into camp. And Detroit had like 10 grand for me to come into camp. And the Cowboys didn't have any money, they were just going on the Cowboys. And so obviously, I'm going with the money, at the time, but there he is. That'll keep you busy right there. Mine's at jiu-jitsu right now. I forgot about it yesterday when we booked. And I'm like, damn, I done told the man, and that they got out to send my wife. My wife did it for me, took them from me. So, but that's what's up. That's what it's all about. But and so had a free agent shot, could have went to the Cowboys. Just so happened though, I went to Detroit, and they had like this D-line coach. He was from the Minnesota Vikings, John Tierlink. And you might know the name, but he like just kind of a smaller, more twitchier guy, a John Randall type, and that really wasn't my game at the time. Now, I developed a little bit into that, like took what they were teaching there and tried to incorporate it down the line because I do believe it was valuable. But they're different kind of players, right? I wasn't that kind of player. I was actually more kind of a player in what the Cowboys wanted, just a big stand-up kind of DN type of player, and they actually had like 2 blown out ACLs that training camp. You dig what I'm saying? That I didn't sign with them. You know what I mean? And so the D-line coach was the one calling me on draft day. Like he was. It wasn't the GM. The GM was the one calling me from Detroit. So I'm just a number to the D-line coach there. The D-line coach in Dallas, he's calling me directly. He's like, man, I watched your tape. Trust me, man. You come, I'm going to give you a fair shot. And he's trying to tell me all the things that I probably should have been listening to, but I'm looking at the money. You dig what I'm saying? At that point in time, 10 grand, you know what? I'm rich, I done hit the lottery. You dig what I'm saying? So it's drinks, everything on me for a couple weeks. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, went there, and that was probably one time that I did take it serious, not in structure. I worked out hard before going to camp, you know what I mean, and ran very hard, was in condition, but I was just behind the 8 ball. They had a drafted guy in front of me. The coach really didn't even really kind of I wasn't his type of guy, you know what I'm saying? And so I didn't make the team, and I'll take my own accountability. I wasn't really quite ready for the mental aspect of what it takes to succeed on the next level. You know what I mean? I was physically prepared, but I wasn't all the way mentally ready. Maybe partially. It turned on too late. You know what I mean? It turned on too late in camp. So by the time I'm in the last couple of weeks of camp, we had been there for 4 weeks. You know what I mean? And it just the timing wasn't right. Life is about timing. The timing wasn't right at that situation. And so I got released. And so when I got released, I was back in Chicago, living on a friend's couch. And I had an agent at the time. His name was Tony Page. He played at Virginia Tech. So it was another thing, relationships. Previously, a lot more years before me, he played with the Dolphins and a bunch of other people. And so he like, man, if you stay there, he's going to be trouble. You know what I mean? Maybe you come move out here. He was living in D.C. at the time. And, work out, find you a job, work, and try to go to the World League that next spring or whatever it was. And so that's what I did. Thank God for that, brother, because he's probably right that influences and stuff I would have got into at home probably wouldn't have served me, and so I just took my stuff up and went to D.C. He put me with a partner of his, Rodney Rice, and they gave me a bedroom, and these brothers didn't have to do that, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could have just been on to the next guy to, whatever. But, obviously they saw something in me and, spirits connected and they looked out for me. And I really appreciate those brothers, man, to this day. But so I went to D.C., got to work out with some guys and, found a little group with some former players that played at Tech with me. And we, try to stay consistent with that and was staying in shape. So I was going to the World League, and I think I got drafted in it or didn't because they had to allocate a guy or something or another. And so I couldn't even get to camp in the World League. You know what I mean? That 97. This would have been the spring of 97. So I couldn't even get to camp. Like they was calling and something happened and we had to allocate a guy. Basically, you know, there was no spots for me. You know what I mean? And so like I'm pissed. I had left and went to Florida. I was in Tallahassee at the time. I had wrapped up my things at in DC, like closed shop, because I'm heading to Florida for that's where they was doing the camps and stuff. Okay. So I got down there or got to Tallahassee and you know, somebody called me and was like, nah, we got your spot been taken or whatever happened. I couldn't get into the camp. So now I'm jammed up in Tallahassee in the spring of 97 and, you know, just at a friend's house who went to FAM, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. And I got a call from Arena. And so now, mind you, I'm how God worked, you know what I mean? I was the guy in college, like, man, I'll never play no arena football. What the hell is this? You dig what I'm saying? Like when it might have came on TV, like clown it, you dig what I mean? And, you know, to go hard on it, you know what I mean? And I might have even been in my mind like that about Canada. You dig what I mean? Like, man, I ain't doing none of that. You know what I mean? I'm going to the show, you know, and
that's what we call it, the show.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so, but you know, God, he works in mysterious ways, and he found a way to humble me at that point in time. So they were calling, right? And so it was the New York City Hawks. They was coming in new to the league. It was the Nashville Cats. These were the two teams that were calling me. They were both new coming into the league. And so where are you gonna pick, New York or Nashville?
Yeah.
Where would you pick out of the two, New York or Nashville? Just right off top of your head, they say you got a chance to go to New York or to Nashville.
New York, you always say that. I always wanted to be down south. So me personally, I probably would with Nashville, but I think anybody would say New York just because of the name.
Just because of the flash or the flare of, all right, well, shit, it's New York. Yeah, well, let me go to New York. You know what I mean? And so they called me in for a workout in New York. And this was prior to the season. So Larry Kuharich was going to be the head coach there. And so he got me out on Long Island, whatever it was. And I don't know. They got me in the mud and we doing one-on-ones. We ain't got no pads. You know, it was a shit show. Just the workout was a shit show. You dig what I'm saying? And so basically at the end of the workout, he comes to me and he's like, you know, well, we're going to have to pass on you, you know, obviously very respectfully, you know what I mean? And I come to play for him later on and obviously compete against him, and he was a good guy. But in that moment, he was just like, nah, I don't, you probably wouldn't work out. You know, think you're cut out for arena football type thing. And so, but we never made it to pads. It was no practices. It was just like a open workout. You know what I mean? And so shit, I'm back to Tallahassee. I flew back to Tallahassee. And so the Nashville called me and they were like, you want to come up here and to camp? I'm like, well, am I going to get in pads? Am I going to make it to pads? You dig what I'm saying? If you tell me that you got a set of shoulder pads for me, then I'm going to come up there. You dig what I mean? And so first year for that franchise. And so I went up into Nashville. Eddie Kayat was the coach, and probably couldn't have got a better first head coach or a better first-time owner of a franchise, you know, to be honest with you. And just got super lucky from my first time out, you know, coming to understand the history of arena and ownership and different markets and teams and how that can go for guys. Like I really like hit the lottery, like a 1 in a million. You know, I'm so glad I didn't go to New York or that it didn't work out. You know what I mean? Because I believe like a year or two later, they might have been folded and, you know, whatever happened with that franchise. And, but Nashville, it was just like, it was like kind of start. It was a city kind of on an upstart. I mean, it's like basically a metropolis now, you know, it's crazy now. But back then it was just like in its infancy, you know, geographically where it's located. It's just kind of the ideal thing. It was just like bubbling. It was ready to blow. You know what I mean? And we were like the first professional sports team there. And so it's like, man, the fan, and then we won, right? So we had a couple guys from the University of Tennessee, Andy Kelly and Corey Fleming, and so the football in Tennessee is like, you know, it's major everywhere, but how they care about their state university, like there's no other university that really competes with it on that level. Sort of like Ohio State in Ohio. Yeah, they have other college teams, but everybody loves Ohio State. It's the same thing with Tennessee. Like, but in Florida, you got Miami, Florida State. You know, people have loyalty to other schools. In Tennessee, it's all Tennessee. You know what I mean? And so we had a couple of those guys on our team. They had outstanding first seasons. We had some good coaches on that staff. Jay Gruden was on that staff that first year. Pat Sperduto was. So they had a lot of those Tampa guys that those guys had. You know, that was the legacy of, because there's like guys before us. You know, didn't start with me, right? It was the Kent Wells and what was my man's name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Nose guard for Tampa, but he was cold. Like he was the guy. These were the guys when I, you know, got in the league. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so anyway, but so Tampa in the South Division. I'm trying to think of his name, and it's on the tip of my tongue. The South Division was the toughest division to be in. You know what I mean? Like it was the nuts and bolts of arena football. It was very physical. You know what I mean? And Tim Markham down there in Tampa and all the guys and the style of football that he liked to play. You had basically Dave Ewert, who was a kind of an offshoot of him in Florida, coaching for the Bobcats. And then you had the Predators, obviously, and their storied history and, you know, the type of football. It was just, that's what it was. You know what I mean? And just, you know, you got it on. So it was more like that division kind of coming in that way. You know, definitely it was a quick learning curve. You know what I'm saying? It was a fast learning curve, you know, messing with arena football, because the dynamics and the angles of the game are completely different. You know what I mean? I don't think people really understand the physicality associated with arena. You know what I mean? And you basically had the same guys that were outdoors just coming into 75% less of the field. You dig what I mean? And yeah, it you know, that, hey, you know what I mean? Them fullbacks cracking on you and 30 series blocking you, and you know what I mean? And
every step deliberate.
Listen,
like let me set you up. It's like literally your setup is one step. It ain't no give me 3 steps. Right now,
when you got guys like Les Barley and Bowden and Rupert Grant, you dig what I'm saying? And these big head look like a Rottweiler. You dig what I'm saying? Listen, I'm talking about they coming, they trying to take you out. You dig what I'm saying? They gonna either get you in the chin or they gonna get you in them thighs, them knees area. You know what I mean? So, and all you trying to do is get off. You know what I mean? You going full speed the other way. So anyway, it was just very physical. And so it kind of suited me, you know what I mean, to the type of player I was. You know, I had heavy weights and, you know, I had gotten to the weight room and, you know, developed myself real big and strong. And I was always leaning on my strength as a player. My first step in my strength, you know, is what I kind of leaned on as a player. So just being baptized in that South Division, thank goodness we had Jay and them, you know, just having to learn how to block too. They took it easy on me that year. We had Franz Papasadero was on the team. He was like the guy that he was their two-way guy, like for that new franchise. They drafted him out of the expansion draft. And Willie Fears, he was the nose guard. Joe March. These were guys like when I started having a little success early, like and they were telling me, you know what I mean? So I was always a team guy, right? And so like when we have a win or we would do good, I always attribute it to the team. Like I never really, even though I might have had some individual accolades in high school and stuff like that, it just always felt like we all were doing it. You know what I mean? When you get into a professional setting, you know, guys are really more worried about like their own production. You dig what I'm saying? Like, because it's tied to money and contracts and, you know, it moves more into a personal thing, right? And so, but I wasn't really in that world yet, right? I wasn't, totally transitioned from one part of football to the other mentally. And I'm just playing what I love to do. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. And I'm like earning a living. Obviously, I had nothing really nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. But but they're telling me I'm like, yeah, we did good that game. They like, nah, you did. You know what I'm saying? They like, nah, you doing it. You know what I mean? It's because of you. You know what I mean? And so it's starting to click in my head. Like, man, okay, this is something different. You know what I mean? Like, I'm having a lot more. I'm doing a lot more than what I'm thinking I'm doing. You know what I mean? And so that was initially that first season. They saw a lot in me, and the coaches and people around me, and it just kind of took off from there. And so that first year had a good year, was all league that first year. And basically that just kind of where it took from there. Going into our second year, Jay left. He went to Orlando. And so it was cool playing with, like, when he was the coach, right? When he was the coach, he was more acting like a player still, because he was just off the field. So he was just, he was all jokes and shit, and, back of the bus, hanging out. Like, I'm looking like, ooh, I'm the back of the bus guy. You dig what I'm saying? He coming, jumping in the back with us, playing cards and goofing off and shit. You dig what I mean? And so I'm like, damn. So anyway, Jay was gone, but he threw me a lot of balls, like at tight end. He gave me a lot of action. You know what I mean? And, gave me a lot of chances in that first year. And so I think Mike New was the coach that second year. I think Mike New came back, and he was the coordinator that second season. And we had still a good year. It was tough. You know what I mean? Just the like I say, the South Division was tough. You know what I mean? All arena football was kind of tough, and this was 98. And so I think Orlando might have won, but it was just some fierce battles. You know what I mean? Some very fierce, competitive battles with those guys. Another one of the guys that I looked up to from a two-way standpoint was Ernest Allen. Like, he was one of the guys when I came into the league. He might have been a year or two ahead of me, but there were other guys too, Jerome Brown up in Albany and some other guys. But like, Ernest was the two-way guy that I kind of looked at, like, all right, that's who I need to be, when we playing against them. Well, I was like that anyway, but being in division and seeing guys a couple times a year, you know what I mean? It heightens, it makes it even worse. You dig what I mean? So and wasn't no trading teams and stuff back then. This was before we had free agency. So, wherever you signed, that's basically where you was, unless the team folded, and so I think he was in Milwaukee for a year. We competed, and then like maybe a year or two, he wound up in Orlando. And so there were some fierce battles there. John Moyer was at Florida. And so, he was a tough player off the rip, you know what I mean? And they sucked, but like, he competed hard. I knew he was that deal early, and so there's a bunch of other guys that obviously I'm probably not remembering now, but just being baptized in that division. All the guys on Tampa, right? The Tampa guys, right? Whoever that they had on Tampa, you knew that was going to be tough, especially up front. You know what I mean? You knew it wasn't going to be one of those, because he had his together. Markham, the program he ran, he going to have that's going to be together. You know what I mean? So being baptized in that division, just kind of set me off on the right foot, and then being able to dominate and play well. And, I just centered, it just suited my game, right? I was kind of not too big. My stamina was great. I could play, the game was suited for me specifically. I took offense very seriously. Like, my years in the league, on my first 5 years, we led the league in rushing. You know what I mean? We took that very serious, like being very physical and leading the league and rushing and pushing guys around. And so I took my blocking very serious on offense. My run blocking, it was my opportunity to fuck jacks up. Like, to get my hands on the hunkies and those smaller guys. And anytime I ever had a chance, I dogged out little dudes. You know what I mean? Like, that was my thing. Like, I'm gonna try to dog you out regardless. But if I found in them walls and you cross my path and you smaller, oh, I'm gonna ragdoll you. I'm gonna do you bad. I'm gonna do you dirty. Like, you ain't got no business being that. Like a bigger guy should be doing me. You do what I mean?
Yeah,
Like somebody bigger should be doing to me. You know what I mean? Like creating that pecking order. You dig what I'm saying? That pack mentality. You know what I mean? On the football field. And so I gave those guys hell. I at one of the high school, Brett Cooper is the
I know, Coop.
yeah, but he coaches at the high school where my daughter trains at. Yeah, where my daughter.
Okay.
And so, but I mean, we fiercely, man. I mean, like we would go at it when he was playing Jack. Like I would try to dog these guys out. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to slam you in the wall, put you over it. Like it wasn't friendly. There was nothing friendly about our competition. There was no friendly competition. You dig what I'm saying? None of that. You know what I mean? Of that. You know what I mean? Really, with nobody we played, to be honest with you. Maybe guys got a little more friendlier when the money came along, maybe, but
afterward. After the game, you could talk. During the game,
none of that. So just the physical nature of it and being in those divisions really helped me groom me for arena football. Got our confidence up. We wound up like really basically taking over that division as Nashville. And so in 2000 and 2001, we went to the Arena Bowl back-to-back. And just those runs were amazing experiences, but coming off the, obviously being in the division, Orlando won it maybe the year before we went or the year or two before we went. And so just like it prepped us, all that stuff, prepped us going. And then we had Marty Lowe, he came as a coordinator. Eddie Kayat was there for the first couple years. And then Pat took over, Spaduta took over as the head coach. But Eddie Kayat he just recently passed, God rest the dead, and just an awesome man, an awesome coach to play for, man. High integrity. You don't get these guys in football, man. You don't. You dig what I'm saying? All football, everybody out for themselves. These coaches and shit can say they love you all they want to. You dig what I mean? It's about production, what you doing to help them. You dig what I mean? Few and far, you run across guys, though, that really mean it, that really have integrity, that really care. You know what I mean? You do run across those men, and Eddie Kayat was one of them. And just learning from that old school kind of, he played for the Eagles in the 60s and, just that type of energy and vibration, and loved his wife fiercely, a man of high moral character, you know what I mean? And, just knew a lot, just an old soul. And, I just had a lot of respect for him. And Pat was a good guy too. Pat was new. What I would say was Pat was right. He just had got off the field and he had been empowered with a coaching job, almost real soon, right? And young and a good team, you know what I mean? And so, but as a player, man, Pat just let me go, man. Pat, Jay and Pat, like they knew when they had something talent wise, they weren't trying to like restrict it. They weren't trying to say, oh, you got to do this, or Pat wasn't trying to say you got to do it this way. Like the best players and coaches, they ask you what you like, what you want to run right here, how you feel about it. You the one out there playing, you know what I mean? And they'll add this sense in here and there and like, nah, let's do this. Oh, we've been doing this 3-4 times in a row. Now let's try this. You dig what I mean? So, so he definitely was that type of coach to me, you know what I mean? And that enabled me to just like have a lot of success, you know what I mean? And I played obviously with a group of guys, and you got to be on one page when you're rushing in arena, especially at nose. Nobody wants to play down in there. You know what I'm saying? So as they start transitioning me down in there, and I could kind of watch high motion and just get off into the guy's chest, had that first step and could kind of get my hands inside, and kind of my wrestling background helped me with my leverage a little bit on them first couple steps. I could overwhelm guys who never played center before. And it was a lot of that when I first came in the league. Like they were like, you used your sorry defensive lineman, you would put him basically at center to hide him, which I don't know why they was on that. Willie Wyatt was the guy I'm talking about in Tampa, but he was that dude for Tampa. Quick, get off the edge, get into the gap, the A gap, quick A gap guy, slap rip A gap, but jumping the count, getting into the A gap, run a little loop. So Willie Wyatt was the guy in Tampa, and they had Bembry. He was like the bigger two-way. They had some dudes, and who was the other dude? But anyway, we did it that way, and Pat turned me loose and had some success. Obviously, good guys around me at the time. Aaron Hamilton, Big Gaines, Fowler played with us. Our Max, Rupert. I just had a bunch of good players around there. There was a bunch of good guys. Our DBs and skill guys. Our quarterback was good, and so our ownership was good. Like that's huge, right? And so just had the right facilities and practice facilities, and all of that. So had a good structure there to succeed on the field, which in turn turned into another opportunity at the NFL level, where I signed back with the Chicago Bears at the end of the '98 season. And that was basically due to Tim Markham. And he basically was sick of playing against me. And I learned this from him. You know what I'm saying? Years later, you know what I mean? And but yeah, he put me on to like one of his guys on the staff with the Bears. Yeah. And he like, man, come get this kid up out this league. You dig what I'm saying? And get him out of here. You know what I mean? And so that's what he did. So I went up there and basically had some success, right off the bat. I had been trained now in arena for like 2 or 3 years, and the angles was different. I knew how to chase guys down, and it had developed me as an all-around player just in a totally different way. But after 3 years in the arena, I was like a full savage. You know what I'm saying? Like by the time I got back to the show, what I should have been in Detroit, I was all of that by the time I got back to Chicago, and was just having a lot of success in practice. But they had their rotation and what they was doing, so they just we sucked too. So I'm like, and I was a local kid, so I'm like, man, you need to be putting me out here. You know what I mean? And at least give me a look. And but they never did. Just kept me on P Squad all year. You know what I mean? And but shit, I was dominating out there on P Squad. I was cheating that shit like games. Whoever I was supposed to be that week, Randall or Reggie White or whoever that was, I'm killing. You know what I mean? And I'm out there trying to do it. It didn't matter to me. I was kind of up. I had security already because I knew I could always go back to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, or something like that. So what they did is they put me around to and I got to say this though. When I got to arena, I was making $600 a game, and it was like $100 win bonus or whatever. But when I got into the camp, I saw that it was like 2 guys on the team. Like, no, he making money. You dig what I'm saying? He not on the $600 a week contract. And D Ham was one of those guys, Daryl Hammond, God rest the dead, one of the greatest players ever.
Yes,
but
sir.
He I'm like, he just came he was like GAing at Penn State, and he didn't even have to be there during camp. And like he had his own apartment and own car and all these other perks. You dig what I mean? Making a little bit more than everybody else. And, so I'm like, hold on, this ain't, this can be something, is what I basically saw that is something to this. So anyway, played a couple years and got another shot in the league. Did that. So after that season, they fired Wannstedt and them. And so they wanted to bring me back, but wanted me to go play World League. But I'm like, man, I ain't trying to go play no World League. I just played all of arena season, all the NFL season. Now y'all want me to go to World League again? I just wasn't up for it, but they like, man, go, we allocating you, blah, blah, blah. You're going to be on there, this, that, and the other. So I'm like, all right, I'll go. So I go to camp, allocated with the Scottish Claymores or whatever at the time. And they wind up cutting me. Basically had some dudes or whatever. Yeah. They cut me. You know what I mean? I'm allocated, and I'm like, hold on, So anyway, but they allocated me. They cut me. So the Bears are like, all right, well, just come back to Chicago. They didn't release me. Like the Bears didn't release me. They wanted me to come back. Whoop de wop. So I'm like, well, can y'all just release me? This was the 99, the spring of 99. I'm like, well, can y'all just release me and let me go play? I was probably going to make about 70 grand arena that year. You know what I mean? Just release me, let me go play arena, and I'll come back for camp. You know what I mean? In the fall, basically what y'all just did with me last year. You did what I'm saying? we just do that again. Let me go get this money. And they were like, nah, if we release you, then, you know, you're just released. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm like, I'm weighing it out in my head. Do I chase this dream or do I go after the 70 bands? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, I'm like, man, I'm gonna go get the 70 bands. And then I had been playing there a couple years. It's kind of home, the whole family team thing that we had talked about. I had established some roots there. I had some property at this point in time. One thing I did get into initially, and so I chose the 70 grand. So I'm like, fuck it, release me. And so they released me, but now it's teams claiming me off waivers. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So maybe I can get some money out of one of them. You know what I mean? So I think Cleveland had claimed me off of waivers, and the coach that had just got fired out of Chicago, CB, good dude, guys who will know that name, D-line guys. He was the D-line coach in Cleveland now. Like, so he had just moved to Cleveland. He like, man, come. He called me. He like, man, just come, man. I promise you're going to get the real shot. You dig what I'm saying? You're going to get the real opportunity. You know, I'm not, you know, you basically, I can't tell you own the team, but if you come, blah, 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 and you do what you're supposed to do, you see you were still there last year, you know, this kind of talk. And I'm like, man, I'm about to make 70 bands. You know, that's what I'm telling him.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I'm like, y'all can't go get 10 grand for me. Go get, you know, anything just to give me a little more security on my end, you know, that if it don't work out, well, at least I got this. He's like, man, they're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to swing nothing for you. And I'm like, well, fuck it. I can't come, CB. You know, just I'll come after the season if y'all. And then I never got an NFL call ever after that, ever again. After I didn't go that time, you know, when they tried to claim me off waivers, boom. So it's 98 and 99. And so I went and got that money. We went on that run. But also right around that time is when we start organizing. And it had been talked about since I had got into the league, you know, because of the poor ownership in places and how players were being treated in other places. And so I was hearing these things, but it was foreign to me because we had a great ownership group. We had great facilities. We had great living quarters. We had great food spots and how we ate, you know what I mean? And things that they did for us. So, but contractually, I knew it was bullshit. Like we were tied in. It was no free agency. We were tied into our contracts. Even though it was a good situation where we were playing, contractually we were handcuffed. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, they were taking care of me or whatever I asked for. But, you know, other marginalized players or, you know, they really didn't have no leverage. You know what I mean? And you really only leverage you have as a player is free agency, you know. And so they have been talking about it, and just in my nature is one of you know, to push back against the machine, you know what I mean? And just naturally, you know, I'm ready. Just got that revolutionary spirit in me, and no matter what it is, want to kind of, you know, challenge authority in a certain way, especially if it's poor leadership and you feel like it's being abused, or, you know, I've never been one. And it's just kind of, especially through football and this type of stuff. And so Calvin Schexnayder, he basically started a movement of players, and his deal was like the free agency thing. He was one of the better receivers in the league at the time, maybe even one of the top guys, but he couldn't move. He had no leverage, you know what I mean? And you know, he was trying to do his thing from that standpoint, and, you know, couldn't get it going. So he basically contacted the United Food and Commercial, UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers Union, and they basically came in and organized us. And you know, we're in locker room to locker room. This was late 90s, and you know, just talking about the league situation and what we had to do, just explaining collective bargaining, and you know, that whole process, and, you know, what it takes to contractually put yourself in a position to, you know, and put yourself in a position to enhance the contract collectively as players. And so you know, that movement started, right? And so when movements like this go on, generally it's kind of a divide and conquer thing that management kind of does. They didn't really do that with us in Nashville. They kind of just left us alone, you know what I mean, as a team. And, we all were, members and initially in organizing and, wanted to structure it and get to a space where, it was really just kind of about having a health benefit initially. For most, we didn't have, health for our families and things of that nature. Also just having a living standard, a housing standard where guys would stay. Some guys were like living in projects and, things currently that basically still go on to this day. And then, just kind of practice safety standards. Some teams were literally rolling out turf on the cement, you know what I mean? And practicing in these type of conditions. And
I've seen all that.
yeah. So, I mean, you've been around, you already know what it is. So, but these are the things that we were dealing with as players and collectively as a group. And, at the end of the day, it's a no, football is not, it's a partnership. The players, it's dependent upon the players, basically. You know what I mean? Period. No owner is putting on no hats and going out there. I don't give a damn how much he funds it. He ain't putting on no plastic, no helmet. You know what I mean? And anybody can fund something, is my point. Not anybody can play football. You dig what I'm saying? And but respect to the good owners. And, I understand from a business perspective, they have a role, understand, in ownership and what they got. But, what we generate, and, what's kind of coming back to the guys, they've been winning a long time and still winning to this day. You know what I mean? And and so just getting guys in a position, but it was contentious, right? So the league did all things management does across all industries. When it's time to break the union, or basically save money is basically what it's about at the end of the day. But in the human exchange business, when you're playing football, it's just not the same thing. You know what I mean? It's not same as working in the factory, although we still have the same plights as, being labor. It's just a little bit different in the Walmart shop as it is the arena football locker room. You know what I mean? And so, it was just very eye-opening, right? From a person who like kind of believes in the brotherhood and the camaraderie of football, just how quickly that shatters. Do you understand how quickly that shatters when it comes to and we wasn't even making no money, bro. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like some of these guys, and how they took this stuff, like this over $600 a game. Like you're gonna compromise the group over 600 when we try to turn that 600 into something way bigger. Do you understand what I mean? And it's like if you that relying on $600, man, go get your job now. Quit football. You dig what I'm saying? And go find a job right now. You dig what I'm saying? If you're not willing to fight for better conditions, you dig what I'm saying, or a better situation for yourself and your family. You know what I mean? And so, so anyway, it went back and forth, and they had the league put like a kind of a company union together, and it went back and forth, and we wound up basically winning. We had to have a vote through the National Labor Relations Board to like who represented the players, and obviously the initial group who started it won the Arena Football League Players Union. We won it, and went on to negotiate that first contract. The NFLPA came in. Gene Upshaw, God rest the dead, kind of took over and helped us negotiate our first game. Added leverage, right? Added leverage and experience. We did all the heavy lifting as players. We organized ourselves. We held the meetings. We did all the things we had to do on the field wise with the UFCW to put ourselves in position. Then Gene and them came in and kind of gave us the direction on how to kind of collectively bargain and things to ask for, and from a CBA standpoint. And he helped us structure our first CBA, which was basically structured after the NFL deal. And so it was salary cap set up. I don't know, when was your first year in the league?
2002, I was in the Deuce. 2003 was my rookie year with the Preds.
All right, so you came into a collectively bargained situation. You know what I mean? And so you got to see that benefit of the work of the guys that had put previously. And so and I'm sure there were guys on the roster at the time making $100,000 or better, or
K-Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Or Ernest. A lot of guys. Y'all had a lot of guys down there. You know what I mean? And but basically through that, man, that effort, and I was elected our first. James Guidry was elected our first president, and then he moved on to take a position administratively with the union, and so the guys voted me to be the president, and that was a big honor for me at the time because I wasn't I just knew it was a heavy responsibility, right? So I think that guys knew I was one of the better players in the league and that I had a lot of leverage. Do you understand? Like, they're not just going to be able to cut him. Do you understand?
That's what I always knew about you. It was like, yeah, we looked at what you did on the field, but one of the things I always appreciated about you was, one, your ventures off the field. So I heard some of the business ventures that you were doing. Like, man, I got to get money and I got to do that too. But then I heard about how you was doing your contracts and everything on the field. And it's like, you know what I mean? That's like, man, I wasn't a big talker anyway, but I was like, eventually I got to get with him because, the way he's setting things up on and off the field, I'm trying to get like that.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. And I try to live my life by example. You know what I mean? I'm not like a big talker or a flashy guy. You know what I mean? Maybe on the field, right? There's there's an on the field person, and we got to be different, right? Football is, man, I try to tell people all the time, I can't believe I played that for 30 years or however long it was. Like, you got to be something loose in your head out there doing what we do. Or it's just football is rough.
You got to have ego on the field.
Hell, it's got to be something has to be there. Yeah, man, something got to be wrong with you. And so but yeah, so just through that, leading that movement or being part of the leadership in that movement, going on to, secure millions of dollars, man, millions of dollars into, and these guys might hate me to this day and don't like me. You dig what I'm saying? Or whoever it may be, but literally put money in their pockets, help change their family situations. You know what I mean? And that's really what it was all about from the beginning. But I was never the guy, like I'm not like a diplomatic type of guy, in the locker room, right? Now I can talk in a business negotiation room and keep it a certain way. I'll keep it the temperature you want to keep it. But when it's in the locker room amongst the men and we talking like real stuff, like it ain't no I'm not trying to be diplomatic in here. We're going to say the truth, whether it's on the field. No, your ass got beat on that play. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to tell me you tripped or, man, I couldn't kick slide or whatever happened. We're going to be accountable. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about what's right and try to live in that, right? Even if I don't like it, we're going to live in what's right in the truth. Do you understand what I mean? And so I was always that type of guy, like confrontational, lay shit on the table. And, and guys don't like that. You know what I mean? When you calling them out and you like, hold up, man, that shit ain't serving the group right there. You know what I mean? Like, that ain't it, And so a lot of these guys were like, they was all with the shit when it was, but when it come out publicly, they start flipping and flopping and, and this, that, and the other. And, man, I don't know. And blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, all right, so it created a lot of tension. Like, and these guys I got respect for, especially on the field. You know what I mean? But it created a lot of tension, you know what I mean, with a lot of players. And so just kind of that tension. And but long story short, we wound up creating a deal, got the next 3 or 4 deals that were associated with arena football. And even to this day, represent the players and trying to keep them even though it's a totally different situation now. And but it still needs some coverage, right? They still need the practice standards. They still need the housing standards. They still need the medical standards, you know what I mean, as far as trainers and, you know, tape and just simple things that you're going to have to do if you're in the football business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't even open a team if you don't have an athletic trainer. If you don't got an athletic trainer and like a training room where y'all gonna take people prior to practice and they can come and get treatment after practice. Like, if you don't have that, don't start a football team. Do you understand? Don't start it. It's like having a helmet. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna have helmets, you're gonna have to have a trainer, bro. This is the 100% injury business. You know what I mean? You're gonna have injuries. You know what I mean? So just these type of practices, and you know, that still continue, man. They still continue. And so anyway, you know, but we got the deal, which led kind of arena football into a different level of talent became to come in the league. Arena 2 was like a great feeder system for the league at the time, because players got to really learn the game prior to coming in and playing. I'm sure that's why you had success right when you came up, because you had time to rep. And so many other good players, Kareem Smith, CJ McClain I played with, a bunch of those Deuce guys that, you know, use that. So they had something good. We had something good going on. You know, and from the developmental standpoint to the league, I thought we had a niche thing. I really loved arena football. I thought I was the best arena football player in the world. I thought nobody could play arena both ways better than me. Like, you couldn't have told. I don't give a fuck if he was in the NFL or wherever he was. I really thought that I was the best two-way arena lineman in the world. You dig what I'm saying? And nobody could tell me different. And this is a niche sport, and I'm the best at this. You know what I mean? It made me feel like I was back in high school, because we all came up playing two-way. You know, they don't do it so much more now, but when we were kids, everybody played two-way. You know, basically everybody played two-way. If you were any kind of good, you were playing two-way. But even all the players basically played two-way. It was like very few guys that played one way. And so I just took to that and just took a lot of pride and honor in kind of being the guy in the arena. And, you know, just, you got to be kind of cocky with it, you know, playing football. It's one of them things. You got to have that narcissistic, you know, not tendencies, right? Not off the field, but it puts you in that, right? When we live in this world of football, you start thinking, because everybody else is blowing you up around you, you know what I mean? You start, naturally, your ego is going to start getting filled up, you know what I mean? And so, but having to balance that, you know, with off the field, and some of that bleeds over off the field and bleeds into your family life, you know what I mean? And how you're carrying your friends and dealing with your folks around you. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of guys can identify with this sentiment. So just, you know, being self-aware, you know, recognizing these things and, you know, trying to manage it and deal with it. But it's, you know, it's tough. And so we wound up getting, yeah, I'm long-winded, bro. You ain't even been able to get one.
This show about you. So I want that. That's why I was kicking back. Like I always wanted to have you tell your story anyway, but I want you to get into this real quick. So we talked about you as a player and everything. I want to get into your mind as like offense breaking their huddle, you lining up. What do you see? Like what are keys and stuff that you kind of look for? And you know, before the play hit, as a D lineman, as a nose, you know, your hand in the dirt. What are things that you're looking for, like as the play's about to develop? I want you to kind of break that down.
Okay, well, I think that first of all, it starts like preparation in the week, right? So whatever game plan that the coach derived, you know what I mean? Really understanding like how he's trying to break or attack the offense, you know what I mean? Or they're weak here, they're weak on the edges, or, you know, they're weaker on their slide protections. They're great man blocking team, you know what I mean? Whatever that is, and whoever the weak links are, you know, trying to identify those things. And obviously that week of preparation, like just preparing hard, you know what I mean? Like preparing like it's the game, you know, always those first 2-3 steps is full speed for me. You know what I mean? Like I'm getting off in the game. You know what I mean? I might not go to the third, fourth step that, I'll pull back or whatever, but those first initial 2-3, you got to be repping that, you know what I mean? And in tune with what's going on from a vibrational standpoint, kind of feeling that. And so I was a high motion guy, just kind of watching that and trying to time the motion, kind of thing. And then it just got to one of those, if it ain't on one, it's on two. If it ain't on two, it's on three. You dig what I'm saying? And just knowing the vibe of what's going on. And all I got to do is hit one home run. You dig what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I ain't got to hit but one. You got to block me every play. You dig what I'm saying? I got to, and just being consistent with the get off. Just consistent with the get off. Just trying to be consistent with, man. I'm trying to get off every play, man. Just get. So just get in that initial pressure, right? So just create and push. A lot of force my first 5 years in the league. I was just like physically dominating people. And but I had to switch to more of a thinking man's game after that. And so I would pick and choose my spots so I wouldn't wear out as easy. So I might give you get off 2 or 3 times, then I'm hitting the smooth to the right, or boom, I'm trying to go expose you wide to the right or wide to the left. So that's why it was good to play with guys like Moyer, and like we had kind of a understanding with each other. Like if he wanted to come inside, all right, I'm gonna take my guy all the way, the center out of the way, so you got more room to work. 2 ways, you know what I mean? If I wanted to work my center wide rushing, he'll take his guy very wide, make a big gap for me to make a move and make kind of a run around kind of a thing. So definitely be very physical and get off orientated the first couple quarters, establish like that pushback where we're establishing the line of scrimmage, you know what I mean? Where we pushing guys back and we got that tempo, and then opening it up a little more as the game, goes along. But them first, 4 or 5 years, man, I was all bull rush because I was, I could get off, I could get inside. There wasn't many people, center or non-center, that could handle me. And I didn't get tired. Like I just didn't get tired. That was one of my things. I had good wind. I could run forever. And, I didn't mind getting down there and mixing it up. So I was a smaller guy that didn't mind getting down in there, which meant my wind was probably a little better than a bigger guy, but I didn't mind, I was a wrestler. So I didn't mind getting there and tugging and getting, but now I got the advantage because I'm hitting you first. You understand? Like I'm literally touching you before you still got the damn ball in your hand. You dig what I'm saying? And so they started switching that shit up, started putting better linemen in there. And then once they moved it to one way, screwed the game all up. You know what I mean? Like moved it to one way play. That's where they fucked it up, just trying to save money, Elway and these guys. And they should have just kept it the way it was and just kept building the brand and stayed committed, right? If they'd have stayed committed to what we had, but we didn't have the commitment there. It was more commitment on the field than it was off the field. And, ownership and executives, they all CYA, you know what I mean? And they talk a big game, but at the end of the day, they covering their own butt. Baker's the NFL guy now. You dig what I'm saying? And whoever else, they all gone and moved on, and we holding the bag of the legacy, right? Of the players and what we believed in the shit at the time and in the moment on the field and what we were doing. And I believe I would probably foolishly, delusionally, you dig what I'm saying? Like, oh, this shit gonna be here for this shit here forever. I'm gonna be. What I'm building right now, I will be the Reggie White of this game, or the Lawrence Taylor, or I will be looked at in that light. You do understand? That's what I'm thinking at that time. From a two-way perspective too, right? Because I took that offense just as serious as the defense. Like I really did, especially in the first 5-6 years. Like I wanted to lead the league in rushing. Like, okay, if my pass blocking wasn't as good, I could hook anybody. You dig what I mean? I could hook anybody. I'm going to block the shit. I'm going to run block the shit out of you because you waiting for pass. Now I'm coming off now. You dig what I'm saying? I'm taking that same first step I took on defense, coming off trying to hit you in your damn face mask. You dig what I'm saying? And so I love that part of it. So I really love the two-way part of the game. And I really thought that was what was special about us. marketing from a marketing standpoint, and the Iron Man thing, you know, and they did that to save a couple of dollars, because when it was Iron Man, right, you had to pay that skill specific guy, right? Yep. I had to pay him 2 ways because he knew how to block and rush. But then when it went to one way, all I had to do was pay a guy who knew how to rush. I could pay the guy who knew how to rush 30 grand. I could pay the guy who knew how to block another 30 grand. That's 60. I didn't have to pay the guy who knew how to do both, which was few and far between guys. You dig what I'm saying? But I ain't have to give him 100. I saved myself 40 grand. Do you understand?
I remember that.
So, you know, just that thing, but you taking away from why y'all even got invested in the first place. Why the brand even what it is in the first place? You dig what I mean? How we even got here was because of Wags and Iron Man and, you know, these type of things what people latched onto. You know what I mean? And so anyway, they, you know, just bad business decisions along the way, not ever really having the players involved. They don't have the players involved really on the NFL level. You know what I mean? And not taking not saying you got to do everything that the guys say, but you know, creating it like a true partnership, not just what we're doing on the field, but our inputs and thoughts about the brand and the game off of the field, and incorporating, you know, things what might be better, and, you know, just using our intellectual property, you dig what I'm saying, in the right ways. And so that's how I approached it, man. You know, it was a very being intense, being in the right frame of mind, you know, like, I'm not the calm guy laying in the locker room, candles and shit, and before the game, and, you know, I'm like, nah, bitch, we got to get ready. This is some intense shit. We got to be up and consistently intense, right? You got to like be up and in a certain place because you want to start fast, right? You want to get out the game and you want to be on your shit right out the gate. You know what I mean? And so being in the right mindset was more of, you know, being physically preparing during the week intensely, because like the football is going to take care of itself. If you go out there and you're doing that, you're going to get into these zones, you're going to play. You know how it is being in that vibration to get off, and you can't do no wrong. There might be 4, 5, 6 sacks a game for you know what I mean? Something like that. Where, man, I literally, when they come into the line, I'm moving before anybody else moving. You know what I mean? I feel what they about to do, or I kind of know what's about to happen before it even happens. You know what I mean? So just being in that state, and intensity is what got me into that state, like being intense all the time. And it didn't work out the best, you know, like I got to take the good, like it's bad, like being that intense too, right? You can lose a little focus or be a little too angry. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's like you take the good with the bad, but right now I'll live with the results. You dig what I'm saying? But I definitely look back. I don't look back at the good shit. I look back at, man, if my dumb ass would have did this a little different, or took a little off this play, or, you know, that I could have did that, or we would have won that game, you know, that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
But that's how kind of was my approach.
So I don't want to hold you up too much, but one thing I always do is I want you to be able to, you know, kind of steer the next generation of guys, or the generation now, whatever you want to call it, the guys who are trying to play pro ball, or the guys just looking at arena, kind of give them some advice on what their approach should be, you know, where their mind should be at going forward.
Well, first and foremost, always be a player advocate. You know what I mean? That's number one. You know, we don't have anything unless we, you know, leverage it ourselves. You know, you're and this is gonna sound extreme, but your oppressor ain't quite happy with you being free. You dig what I'm saying? He ain't gonna let you go because you asked nicely, or because you know it's gonna be pressure. You dig what I'm saying? It's gonna be leverage you applied. You dig what I'm saying? To put yourself in a better situation. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be this person cares about me, that's why he's gonna do right by me type of thing. You know what I mean? That's just not how it works. Not how it's worked for hundreds of years. You dig what I'm saying? Not biblically. You dig what I'm saying? Not, you know, we can go that. It just doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? So always players need to have themselves in a position to leverage each other collectively, you know, and work together to get the most benefits out of this very violent, deadly game that we play. You know what I mean? And, that we sacrifice ourselves for. And I know there's a lot of glamour and glory, and everybody wants to chase the dream. I get it. You dig what I mean? But there's a lot of, and for the ones who make it and have success, like yourself or myself, where we can kind of stand on football and we know that it helped build us to where we're at as men. Also, there's 100 other stories of guys who worked the same way we did, but the cards didn't pan out. And, you know, from a timing perspective or however that didn't work out, you know, they had mentally couldn't hold it together. Do you understand what I'm saying? And there ain't no goddamn 401k for college guys or high school guys. I'm dedicated your life in high school. Do you understand what I'm saying? Or, you know, there ain't none of that for none of us. And listen, they played football through the pandemic. They didn't cancel no games for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is why I try to tell people, like, the way football and what it means to people out here and the money and the revenue generated through football from high school, from literally Little League to the NFL, you know, like that needs to be a little more equitable for the players. And I don't know how that works or what that looks like. You dig what I'm saying? But I just know it ain't right. You dig what I'm saying? I just know it ain't right. And, you know, we should have community centers in all our neighborhoods. Do you understand? Like, it could be equitable in that standpoint. You know, how hard would it be to build a community center in every NFL city?
Mm-hmm.
How hard would it be to build every community center, every college town?
Yeah.
That serves the children. You dig what I'm saying? And taught them in a different way. You know what I mean? So this shit ain't rocket science. You know what I mean? You know, it ain't like the money ain't there. You know, they find the bread when they want to find it for something that they want to do or whatever. They find the money. You know what I mean? They find the money. So just making this more equitable. Players, put yourself in the right position. Players always lean on each other. Be part of whatever union, association, whatever it means, whatever that looks like. Start one. You know what I mean? If you're not in a collectively bargained situation as a professional, start one. Be a part of one. Reach out. Talk to the guys on your team. Be an advocate for the players. Be an advocate for players, because we're the ones that make all this glitz and glamour go. That's around the football. And then just as it relates to arena football and guys who are like still chasing a professional dream, because I know a lot of young guys. My nephew just got drafted to the Jets last couple of weeks ago or whatever it was. So I was excited for him, you know, for that. My other nephew plays professionally in Canada. He played for 8 years. So maybe, you know, he's not quite done yet, but so I have that lineage to carry on in the family or whatever. And so that's what this was always about for me, right? It was about for me kind of in the moment. I knew that even organizing, right? I was one of the better players making a lot of money, but I knew that as a group, we could get more, and that would mean more for me, right? Like if the group was getting more, then I would be able to negotiate individually more. And so that was part of the motivation, but a lot of it was like the future, like the kids that's coming behind us. You know what I mean? What type of leagues or situations will they be in when they, you know, come and start playing? And so just kind of trying to leave it better for the last guys. You know, that's what it's all about. Leave the situation a little better for the next group of guys coming in and try to teach them. Joe March, Willie Fears, these guys were guys that were like coaching me up at the time, and they wanted me to do well and they wanted to see me succeed. So, you know, I really appreciated that from those guys. But give it a 2-3 year shot. You come out of college, because where the resources are at, you know, with arena football, just try to stay alive. Just stay playing, right? You come out of college and you didn't get the look you want. Don't give up. Stay working out. Stay dedicated. Try to find a situation where I can just get on the field. I wouldn't care what league it was. If you got to go play for a couple $100 a game, go do that. You know what I mean? To try to, because there's more football being played now, right? UFL and some of these other leagues. And so, you know, just try to get to the next situation, bounce from one situation, but go dominate. Like, you know, if you go in the league 1 or 2 years, maybe 3, you got to dominate those years. And if it ain't there where you can negotiate a little better, you know, situation for yourself or some leverage out of your playing, then man, go get a job. Go start figuring out what you want to do long term. You know what I mean? whether that's whatever that's going to look like start that process earlier. Like, don't drag out the 10-year, $200 a week. You dig what I'm saying? Arena career. You dig what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to be good for your family. Do you understand where I'm coming from? I know that might be a hard thing for people to hear because they love ball, whoop the wop, and it's fun, whatever. But like, maybe if you're making 50 bands a year, that at least a livable wage. If I was making 30, or I can negotiate a $30,000 contract, maybe I got some incentives there, I'm doing some business, you know what I mean? Then, all right, yeah, I can keep this going for a little while, you know what I mean? And I'm doing my money on the side, and it's fun to do. But listen, $2,000 a season, you know what I mean? It's too rough a game. You dig what I'm saying? Like, you give your body that, like a couple years of that, But if it don't, you ain't all league and the top guy, the first couple years, you know what I mean? It can't, command no money. Then listen, this guy's coming out of college every year. Let them do that. You know what I mean? And try to just, move on with your life. You know what I mean? And get into a situation. I wouldn't care what it was. FedEx, UPS, the dollar store. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably gonna serve you better long term.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Than doing a long term thing with I'm supposed to be what you call it. So that's what that would be my message to younger players, man, is fight, keep the dream short, go hard at the dream them 2-3 years, and maybe collectively bargain a situation, make it better if you do want to play longer, but you can't play in you just can't. You can't.
Yeah.
People might be looking at you crazy, your wife, you know what I mean? Your kids, you do the same. That you only got so much. But then when you go up and you start making a little money, then it becomes, people can see, the value in it. So okay. I know I was long-winded, man, longer than most, man. I ain't give you much chance to get in here and say much, but
nah, you good. Like I said, like, man, you wanted to catch that I looked up to, like you built this thing. So it's like, man, you got this. Speak your mind. I ain't had nothing to say.
I always had a lot of respect for you and your game, you know what I mean? And was watching you guys, obviously, down there in Orlando when you were playing there. And because you went to Chicago after Orlando, right?
Yeah, I went to Philly, Chicago,
Philly.
I ended up out in Utah.
Philly
after I start chasing that money.
Yeah, Philly. Yeah, Philly is what I'm thinking about too. Yeah, Philly. Yeah, Philly.
Yeah.
You won it.
Out that money.
Y'all win it when you was at Philly?
2 years after me. That's when that whole situation we talked about, taking your salary and splitting you in half and getting
Yeah. So you was just coming into that, right? One of the better. Yeah.
Just when I started making that money for being
a decent way, right? Yeah.
Boom. Then all of a sudden you cut my salary. Yeah.
A little bit though. You got a little bit of the juice though. You know what I mean?
I got about 3 years of that good money before they really started cutting into
it. Yeah. Well, that's what I like to hear, man. Guys who made most out of that opportunity there, right? You know what I mean? Like, the things that we were fighting for, like, it's really served players like yourself. You know what I mean? And shit, that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? And for it to turn circle, and for you to have this platform and to put out here for guys, it's big respect, and God bless you for it. You know what I mean? So we'll be in touch. Hopefully we'll do some more. I would love to do some more stuff in some different kind of ways, and maybe collectively groups of guys, or honor some teams, to like create some things. And I think there's some real ways we can work together. So like I said, I appreciate you really being out here with this, because at least I know for me, and I can tell watching the other ones, and I know for guys, I know how they feel about it. Honored, right? You know what I mean? Just to be honored in a certain way. And even if 50 people watch this, it's the fact that you as a peer are honoring. Do you understand? Yeah. So I appreciate that as a soldier, right? You know, as a warrior, you know what I mean? From one warrior to the next, you know what I mean? You know, I honor you, my brother, you know what I'm saying? And what you're doing, because it means something. It really does. It really does. It gives old guys like us, you know, a good feeling. You know what I mean? What we are as men, and you come to find this out, especially when you leave the field, how underappreciated we are. You dig what I'm saying? You know, as men, you know what I mean? And being kind of a certain kind of guy, there's not a lot of stomach for, you know, throwback men, you know what I mean? And so I appreciate you honoring that. I appreciate you honoring.
No problem. Again, appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, and you know, people, you know, kind of get an introduction to you. Now they can be guided in their YouTube's Google of you, watching videos, and just, you know, searching your story.
We got
you know
something.
What I mean, so but
we
not
got
as more behind the name, just the name.
All they got to do if they want to know, just type the name in, and it's gonna pop up.
Google me.
All right, my brother. God bless you, bro. It was a good one.
No, definitely. I definitely want to get you on. There's so much more to you than what we got out of this little podcast.
Anytime, man. We could go for part 2 whenever you're ready.
Definitely. All right. Sounds good. So
God bless. Take care.
You too.
Love.